Hello everyone, this is a new initiative brought to you by Transformer S Academy. In this we will be detailing the current affairs on a daily basis related to UPSC and KPSC exams. So let's get started for 1907-2018, the Hindu analysis. Item: nobody has an exclusionary right of temple entry. So we know that from quite some time the Sabrimala temple is under the issue because they have been prohibiting the women entry into the temples, taking the biological factors into considerations. So here we have to understand to why is it happening, because it denotes a patriarchal or a partition approach firstly, and you should also know what are the important articles which are in support of women. So the first article on the line would be Article 15 Clause 1 of the Constitution, which talks about the women's right, and this particular women entry prohibition is a discrimination which has been guaranteed to them with respect to Article 15 Clause 1. And secondly, a very important article is Article 25 Clause 1, which is a religious freedom given to the citizens of the country, irrespective of whether they belong to be a man or a woman. So there is no bar or should not be any bias based on that. And thirdly, we have an Article 51A(e), which is with respect to your fundamental duties. And again, the prohibition of the women's entry is on the basis of the womanhood or a biological features, which the thing is not to be appreciated, and as per the duties, that the fundamental duties, the aim is to renounce it at the earliest. And this is based on the ages or essence and act of discrimination which has been based on the sex. So this has to be taken out. And an eminent personality, Mr. Dr. Ambedkar, had said that the public places like the public roads or the schools and places meant for the public access are so questioned into entry, which means that it is essentially a question of the equality. So whatever the constitution is tend to guaranteeing the equality, it is the outcome of a violation of those kind of an equalities or a constitutional status which has been given to persons out there. And the managerial rights of the religious authorities under Article 26 Clause B of the Constitution cannot override the individual women's religious freedom guaranteed under Article 25 Clause 1. So we have, as per the Article 26 Clause B, a managerial rights. So this managerial rights at any point of time cannot interfere into an individual personality which is being guaranteed under the Article 25 Clause 1. So this is about the tradition versus the constitution, how and what are the important articles deals with the constitution. And we should also know what are the important Supreme Court verdicts which has happened. So the Apex Court's ruling came after hearing a petition which has been filed by the Kerala in the places of the public authorization of entry rules 1965, and it also tells that it is against the constitutional mandate to deny the entry to women. And the court also supported the Kerala government, which really had a rooted for the entry of the women of all ages to the temple. And very importantly, Supreme Court said that the right of the women to pray is a constitutional right. So as we have known that there are so many articles which is in support of the women, which is the constitution has given, having no kind of a gender bias and equality has been given to them, which means that this particular right to women to pray is a constitutional right. And the court observed that the constitution upholds the ideals of the liberty of the thought, expression, belief and the faith, be it for a man or a woman. Again, there should not be any bias to based on it. That's one thing. And the court also observed that not allowing the entry in the temple was a violation of the rights to equality and the gender justice. So again, the same thing is getting repeated. So Supreme Court here is trying to make an observations and also the statements clear, which means that whatever the issues are happening now where the women is being denied with the entry into the temples, which is absolutely a rights to equality which is being questioned out or which is going out of the constitution. But right now, the women's rights to pray is a constitutional right. So it's been very clearly said by the Supreme Court verdict. And here you have the issue pertaining to it. It started way back in 1991, and in 2017 the case was been actually referred to the constitutional bench, and you have the timeline of the issue, so you can just have a look on to them. The next one, the Lok Sabha clears the detention policy. So basically most of us would know that the Right to Education Act 2009, which came into existence, had actually prohibited the detention of the children, and till they complete the elementary education they have to keep on getting promoted from one class to another class, that is till class 8. But right now we have the right of children to free and compulsory education, second amendment bill 2017. So we'll see what is the amendment happening to the original bill 2009. So here the amendment is making with the provisions that the state that has a regular examination will be held in class 5 and class 8 at the end of the every academic year. in case a child fails the exam, he will be given an additional instruction and they have to take up with a re-examination. And even if he fails in the re-examination, the relevant, let's say the central or the state government, they have to decide to allow the schools to detain the child. So they have to give an authority to the schools that they have to detain the child and see that the child is not being promoted further. And the issue right now is that there are differing views on whether the children should be detained for failing the examination in elementary school. First question is that should the student be really detained just because they're failing with a particular exams? And here they're telling that there are some arguments which is going across, and that is about the automatic promotion, which actually reduces the intensive of the children to learn and also for the teachers to teach. They're feeling that the contributions with respect to the students and also with the teacher can be down with respect to there's no proper kind of an thresholds, or they don't have a proper scrutiny areas which they not be serious on the way of their preparations. And very another important argument is that detaining a child leads to dropouts and does not focus on the systematic factors that affect the learning, such as quality of the teachers, schools and the assessment. So on one side they're telling that the intensive of the people, that's the students to learn and the teachers to teach, might have been a reducing part, but on the other hand they're telling that if this is being done, which means that the dropouts may increase. So now the main ideology is that we have to educate the people, giving them the free education, also making it compulsory and also being a part of your fundamental rights as per the Article 21A. Having said that, if at all we tend to do a kind of a detention to the student, which means that the dropouts might increase. So is this move a right move, which has been questioned right now, and this is also an issue. The provisions of the bill regarding the assessment and detentions are at the variance with most states have demanded it. And in this respect, the question is whether these decisions should be taken by the parliament or left to the state legislatures. So again, there is a kind of a federalism issue which has been coming between the parliament and also the centre, and it is still unclear who will conduct the examination. With respect to who may lead to detention, is it the centre, the state or the school? So the clarity of this particular aspect, who conducts the examination and who detains it, is it the centre, the state or the school, which has to be sorted out. So these are important issues pertaining to the bill with respect to the Second Amendment Act 2019. And the next one, Cabinet relaxes the NELP, pre-NELP pact rules. So this is basically with respect to NELPs. So we'll see important hydrocarbon structures. We'll see what are they, the types of the hydrocarbons. Here you have it for HELP and here you have it for the pre-HELP. So I recommend you all to first have a look on to it. It's just showing a differentiations between the HELP and also the pre-HELP. So this is basically with respect to the hydrocarbons. So you can just have a look on to it. The key decisions is that the Union Cabinet recently approved the policy framework to streamline the production sharing contracts signed in the pre-new exploration licensing policy and also the NELP periods, and increasing the exploration period granted for the blocks in the northeast. So in the northeast, the exploration period has actually been granted because of their downtrodden areas and other structures being supporting to their particular situations right now, and easing the sharing of the royalties with the developers of the blocks. Based on the recommendations of the Hydrocarbon Vision 2030 for the Northeast, the government has extended the timeline by 2 years for exploration and 1 year for the appraisal period. So this is about it, and this was done with while considering the geographical, environmental or also the logistic challenges of the northeastern region. So this is what I told you earlier, because taking the considerations to what is the region where it's been located and how strong they are there with respect to the logistic and also the environmental changes to what they undergo is what the extension for the northeast has been given. And the governor has also allowed marketing, including the pricing freedom for natural gas to be produced from discoveries which are yet to commence the production. The government has created an enabling framework for sharing of statutory levies, including the royalty, the cess in proportion to the participating interest of the contractor in the pre-NELP exploration blocks. So this is about the NELP and the pre-NELP part. So at the first go you will not understand them, just wait for another couple of news to come so that you will understand to what is the issue is all about. Otherwise you can always welcome to Google and get an information with respect to the hydro exploration. The next news item, the cane prices get bittersweet response. So this is basically with respect to the MSP and also the FRP, that's a minimum support price versus the fair and remunerative prices. So here the MSP is a form of the market intervention by the government of India. This is to ensure the agricultural produce against any shortfall in the farm prices. And the minimum support prices have been announced by the government at the sowing seasons of the certain crops, and this recommendation is on the basis of the Commission for the Agriculture Cost and the Prices. And the MSP price is fixed by the government to protect the particular producers, the farmers, and also the excessive fall in the price during the production years, which is in bumper, and also guarantee a kind of a price for the produce from the government, so that if there is any kind of a fall in the prices, they can always get a minimum amount to whatever the productions and the investments cost which has been incurred. The fair and the remunerative pricing is used in sugarcane industry to replace the MSP, that's minimum support price. This is based on the Rangarajan Committee report of reorganizing the sugarcane industry. The committee found that in the production of the sugar, 70% of the input cost is the sugarcane. Obviously, if you see the processing of the sugars, which means that the input of the sugarcane would be some sugars out of it. So that this is just a basic to what they are saying. And this FRP method is useful in times when the sugar prices are high, but the FRP method asks the sugar companies to pay the farmer the MSP for the sugar when the sugar and the sugar price is low. And this is adversely affects the financial health of the sugar factories in times of the low sugar prices, where the companies has to pay the MSP even though the sugar prices are low. So this is with respect to the kind of an MSP versus the fair and remunerative pricing. So what is an issue pertaining to it, and here they have given the statements with respect to the FRP and also the MSP. So just understand what is that. The next one, getting the language count right. So this is basically we are talking about the language threat, which is again being very important. The world's indigenous languages are under the threat of disappearing, with one language dying every 2 weeks and many more at risk. So which means that here the threat for the language is being very vaster, and within, let's say, in every 2 weeks there is a language which has been dying, and there is a high risk for the languages right now. And the language is an important part of any society because it enables the people to communicate and also express themselves. So if we have to communicate, the one important tool for communication would be the language, and also to have their expressions and also to make it more expressive, the language becomes very important. But when a language dies out, the future generations lose a vital part of the culture that is necessary to completely understand it. This makes the language a vulnerable aspect of the cultural heritage, and it also becomes very especially important to preserve it. So right now the concern is that it's getting died up or it's having a kind of a threat, but our concern is we have to preserve it. The large parts of the culture get exterminated through the slight shift in the policy instruments. In 1931, the census was important because it held up a mirror to the country about the composition of the caste and the community. Wherein again in 1965 we had the census, the languages in the country were enumerated in full. So recently the Census of India made the public the language data based on the 2011 census, which took into account almost like 120 crore speakers of every large number of the languages. During the census, the citizens submitted 19,569 names of the mother tongues, technically called the raw returns. However, total was 1,369 names technically called as labels were picked as being names of the languages, and 1,369 have been grouped further under a total of 121 group labels which has been represented as languages. So, but what we have under the constitution is 22 languages which has been included in the 8th schedule, and that would be called as scheduled languages. And according to the analyst under the heading Hindi, there is also nearly 50 other languages, that is Bhojpuri, which also come under the ambit of the Hindi language, and this is same in case of Sanskrit as well. This is one of the outcomes which has been said. And census in India should adequately reflect the linguistic composition of the country. It is not a good practice when the data helps neither the educator nor a policymaker nor the speaker of any languages for themselves. And the census does not provide the data on the second language preferences, and it inadequately reflects the India's linguistic composition and also with the inconsistent with the global ideas. The census and a massive exercise that consumes so much time and energy need to take care of three important things. Number one, need to see how it can help a greater inclusion of the marginal communities, first thing. Secondly, how our intangible heritage can be preserved. So language, which is an intangible one, how is that we can preserve them? And third one, how India's linguistic diversity can become an integral part of our national pride. So basically this is about the linguistic diversities to what we have in our country and making it as an integral part of our national pride. So this is about it. And next we have is the UNESCO role. So here the UNESCO has progressively developed its vision and deepened its understanding of the global linguistic diversity, and UNESCO is actually tries to highlight the key role that the languages play in widening the access to the education, protecting the livelihoods, preserving the culture and also the traditional knowledges. In 1999-2000, it also proclaimed that observed as February 21 as an International Mother Language Day, and in 2001, the Universal Declaration on the Cultural Diversity accepted the principle of the safeguarding the linguistic heritage of humanity and giving support to expression. And also with respect to, we have the UNESCO, which has launched a linguistic minority network and supported the researchers pertaining to it, and it has also brought the out atlas of the world's language in danger, which highlights the central place of languages in the world heritage. So it is the main role of UNESCO is pertaining to the linguistic diversities which is being present in the globes. So how is that we are going to preserve? What are the steps and the measures which has been taken by the UNESCO? One, the Wuhan breakthrough. This is actually the 2+1 formula. So you should know what is 2+1 formula by now. It is a proposed 2+1 formula. It's between China, India and plus another country, and this could further enhance the overall regional prosperity and can become the template for the rise of the South Asia. So Beijing and New Delhi could engage with any third country in the region and competition between the two to be avoided. So this is basically like China and India are coming close together, plus that they would be adopting another country and they have to look on for their particular regional prosperity and ensure that what can be done best among them. And the lines of the strategic communications have opened up between India and China communications, and the arterial flow of the informations exchange has meant that both nations can be a joint custodian rather than rivals in managing the shared interest. So again, the 2+1 which has been currently proposed by the China to deal with Nepal can possibly be extended to the other international engagements too. The Nepal's ties with India had come under the severe strain in the year 2015. This is because with respect to the border blockade, and that had actually choked up with the critical supplies, and we had a problem with respect to India and Nepal. And at that time, Nepal and its political leadership started enhancing the ties with China to counterbalance India and overcome the strain. So this is like just looking out for an alternative as the relationship was getting tougher with respect to India and Nepal. Nepal had to move on for the next country and it looked forward towards China, and they are trying to enhance their kind of ties with one another. That's Nepal and China. So way ahead is that we have the ball is now in India's court to respond to China's 2+1 formulation. Secondly, by grasping the 2+1 opening, India will have the opportunity to start the conversations of co-developing Nepal in a trust-building partnership with China. And third, the 2+1 formula can become the template for the peaceful rise of the South Asia, which has been synergized by China and India as the twin engines of the regional growth. So by having an acceptance or for the formulations to what has been proposed at 2+1, so these are the important outcomes of that particular aspects. So this is about it. The next one, the next news item, the long arm of the law, fugitive economic offender. A fugitive economic offender is any individual against whom a warrant of arrest in relation to a scheduled offence has been issued by any court of India. So this is basically of one particular individual where the court has been given an arrest warrant, or who has either left India to avoid the criminal prosecution, or who being abroad refuses to return to India to face the criminal prosecution. So it might be another area where a person who has already done a crime in India and he has been supposed to be jailed, but he wants to escape it and he moves on for another country so that he may not actually face the criminal prosecutions. So these are called as a fugitive economic offender. There are few list of offences that can qualify an individual to be designed as an economic offender, and those several acts would be: number 1, Negotiable Instrument Act 1881, the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, the Central Excise Act of 1944, the Customs Act of 1962, then we have the Prohibition of the Benami Transactions Act 1988, and we have the Prevention of the Money Laundering Act 2002, and also with respect to the IPC. So based on all of these particular areas, a person can be listed as an offences as per and designated him as an economic offender status. And next is, if a person is designated as an fugitive economic offender, the special court can direct the central government to confiscate the proceeds of the crime in India or abroad, whether or not such property is owned by the fugitive economic offender or any other property or Benami property in India or abroad that is owned by the fugitive economic offender. So this is basically a special court which is actually directing the central government to confiscate and also proceed with the crimes to what is being done, and also confiscate the properties to the person what he has it in the Benami property or his own particular names, either in India or in abroad. The confiscation of the property within India is not a problem for the center, but when we have to confiscate outside India, then we have to have a touch with the respective country. And the fugitive economic offender will also be disqualified from accessing the Indian judicial system for any civil cases, and he will not be able to access the judiciary of India for any sort of that's a civil cases. In keeping with the principle of innocent until proven guilty, the burden of proof for establishing that an individual is a fugitive economic offender or that certain property is part of proceeds of a crime is on the director appointed to file an application seeking of fugitive economic offender. So this is with respect to the fugitive economic offenders, and these are the details. The next one, a fishy matter. This is with respect to the formaldehyde in fish. We know that again couple of days we had the news items pertaining to it. So recently the traces of the chemical formaldehyde in fish was found in several states, and the state government, that's a Kerala state government, found the formaldehyde laced fish being transported into the state, and this is one which has a cancer inducing and which is very illegal in use to preserve the fish. And the International Agency for Research on Cancer had labeled the chemical as carcinogen in the year 2004, but still it's been used off. And the study conducted in Chennai revealed around 5 to 20 ppm of the chemical in the freshwater marine fish in 2 of the city markets. And Goa has also reported the similar findings. However, the Food and the Drug Administration later clarified that the levels in Goa samples were on par with the natural occurring formaldehyde in the marine fish. As we are done with the kind of researches with respect to Chennai, that is in Tamil Nadu, it was a time to just look on with respect to Goa. But in Goa, the thing what they had it as a formaldehyde what is naturally occurring. There's nothing to do with that injections or using illegally. And the Food Safety and the Standard of India had actually banned the formaldehyde in the fresh fish. So why is this? Because this has certain problems. One is that if there is at high doses, it might cause the gastric irritation. Second one, formaldehyde binds to the tissues, and unlike added to formaldehyde which remains free, and the workers from the industries, especially the textiles, printing, are having an inhalation of the formaldehyde fumes and show high rates of nasopharyngeal, and they also show high rates of cancers among them, and which has been associated with the formaldehyde which has been a part of the fish. So this is about it, and this is, we know that they are using the formaldehyde to preserve the fish for a longer time, which is very illegal, and it was being banned over the time, but still the continuation of the formaldehyde is getting happened. So these were the important news items for 1907, and the question for the day is that first one, list the articles in connection to the women's right with regard to the temple entry. So you have to list out the articles which all supported the women's entry through the constitution. Second one, who recommends the MSP for certain crops to the government of India. So you have to give the answers with respect to whose recommendations would be prevailing to set a minimum support price, and that would be announced by the government of India over the time. So these were the important news items. Thank you.